Good afternoon. It's the Sunday best edition of the Weather Mike. How are you? It's about 12:12 in the afternoon, Sunday, February 25th. And we have weather to talk about because there's weather everywhere. It's crazy. Mostly we're talking the Pacific Northwest storm with very low snow levels for Oregon and Washington. And then the front that's coming afterwards that'll plow into the Midwest and drop our temperatures quite a bit for a day, and then severe thunderstorms out ahead of that. So let's get into it. Here are your hazards for today, also known as the watches and warnings across the country. And it's the western half of the country that's dealing with stuff, mostly wind. New Mexico, either high wind watches, wind advisories, or red flag warnings. Now, the difference between a red flag warning and, say, a wind advisory just means be advised it's going to be windy. The red flag warning means it's dry and warm and there's fire danger associated with it. So that's eastern New Mexico, that's eastern Colorado, that's into Nebraska and parts of northern Kansas with the red flag warning. Meanwhile, back in Colorado and northern New Mexico, we have a winter storm watch in effect for our storm that's going to be dropping into the Pacific Northwest later today and spreading to the southeast. Also, that cold front that's coming too. I did mention that earlier. We'll show you the severe weather possibilities. Back to wind advisories, high wind warnings for Wyoming. That's eastern Wyoming, and then northern Wyoming, western Wyoming. We're looking at winter storm warnings or winter weather advisories or winter storm watches. Montana, it's wind and winter storm warnings, and also Idaho with a winter storm watch, winter weather advisories for Utah, or winter storm warnings depending on elevation and location. Nevada, same story. It's either wind or winter weather expected. California, some wind advisories there. Also, winter weather advisory, I do believe that is for the Sierra Nevada. For the Cascades of Oregon and Washington, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisory for the Coast Range of mainly Oregon there, and some wind issues for eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, and a little bit there in northeastern Oregon, a winter storm warning as well. There's a little mountain range there. All right, here's what's going on the surface today. We have a cold front barely peeking into Minnesota, North Dakota. Some freezing rain possible there. A mixture of rain and snow around that. New York State, rain or snow, or snow. Also for Vermont and New Hampshire, snow. A little tiny patch of rain. Virginia, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee. Colorado, a mix. Wyoming, Yellowstone Park area, snow. Heavy snow, Idaho, northwestern Montana, the Cascades, and parts of northeastern Oregon with rain, snow mix around that. Today's highs around the country are high. Texas, you're in the 80s, except for Amarillo at 78. And I guess that's Paris at 79. Otherwise, 80s. 70s for Florida. 80s for southern Arizona, of course. 70s for California. And 60s stretching all the way into South Dakota, Iowa, Illinois, the plains quite warm, 70s, Kansas, Missouri. You have to get all the way up into Minnesota, the nation's ice box, barely below freezing for highs today. Also up in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, but otherwise quite warm everywhere for February 25th. I mean, technically still winter. And it is winter. For the Pacific Northwest and inland in the Pacific Northwest, this is tomorrow. Cold front moving through Washington, Oregon. Snow levels, I checked the Portland forecast, snow levels getting as low as 300 feet above sea level. So very close to down on the deck. And heavy snow for the Oregon Coast Range, also for the Cascades of Washington, Oregon, inland Idaho, heavy snow, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Montana, heavy snow, and the Sierra Nevada, heavy snow. critical fire weather possible. West Texas from Amarillo through Lubbock to Roswell, New Mexico, down to Midland, Odessa. So be careful there, Childress, on the eastern edge of that. And it's thunder showers for the Ohio Valley, for the Tennessee Valley, Kentucky, Indiana. And way up in New England, a mixture of rain and snow. And then we look at Tuesday. Here's where our severe weather breakout looks like it will be. Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, you're included in that. Chicago. We'll show you that in more detail here on my next map. Freezing rain possible. Wisconsin, Michigan, parts of Minnesota. Some freezing snow. Heavy snow north of that. Most snow is freezing, I've noticed. All right, Colorado, heavy snow. Utah, heavy snow. Oregon, Washington, heavy snow for the Cascades, the Olympic Mountains, heavy snow, Washington. And snow across interior Northwest, Nevada, Utah, also Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Nebraska and Minnesota. And then it's a mix for Iowa, Nebraska, Colorado, all the way down to New Mexico, Arizona, and even parts of California could see a mix or rain. Now, here's your severe weather threat. So we have the slight risk would be mostly Illinois, Indiana, southern Michigan, just a tiny bit of Wisconsin included that, and you as well, Missouri. Now around that, the marginal risk, does mean you can still have severe weather. This will likely be a line of storms ahead of a cold front that's blasting through. And the biggest threat is going to be damaging winds. Could see some large hail as well. Now, for a severe thunderstorm, that's 50 knot winds would qualify as severe, which is 58 miles an hour. So, call it 60 mile an hour winds, not out of the question in this area, and gusting higher. So be careful. Or be on the lookout, just watch your weather and look out for warnings in case there are any. All right, starting 20 minutes ago across the country on the GFS, kind of quiet, but here comes our system moving into Washington right now with rain on the Olympics and along the coast, and then snow, heavy snow for the Washington Cascades. And then as we go through time today, that cold front and system, you can see the cold front just lining up right here already. As we get early in the day tomorrow, this is... What is this? 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Oregon time, and Washington time, West Coast time. So tomorrow, that cold front moving through. Here's where we have snow levels dropping to 400 feet in western Oregon. Western Washington didn't list how low the snow level would go, but they're not expecting any accumulations from snow mixing with rain. But it is heavier snow as you get interior, other side of the Cascades, into Idaho, into Montana, into Yellowstone area of Wyoming. And that's where we're going to see the increase in snow here as we go through the day. Monday, now moving into Tuesday. And our cold front right here, and you can see behind the cold front, cold air. These lines of equal pressure very close together. We're going to have a lot of wind ahead of the front and behind the front. Ahead of the front, you're going to have some wind compression. It's going to compress the air. You're actually going to warm up ahead of the front, and then the front's going to blast through, and it's going to get cold with some brief light snow. North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, Wyoming, and in time moving through Nebraska, more of Minnesota, and where I live here in Iowa. And so we can watch that progress. Meanwhile, it's heavier snow down in Utah, Colorado, and northern New Mexico as this moves forward. And you can just see that front moving through. You see the blue lines as the cold air, the red lines as the warm air, and they're right there. So as the front moves through, pretty dry frontal passage here in Iowa and Nebraska. Behind it is where we're seeing a little bit of snow. But when this front gets to the warmer, moist air, relatively warmer and moist air, this is where we're going to see our severe threat as we get into the day Tuesday. Now, this is Tuesday right here. And then as we go through time, the GFS does start to show those showers as the front approaches. And thunderstorms popping up now in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. Here's your area of brief snow with a lot of wind. Not a whole lot of accumulations. It's moving really fast. But the storm's starting to line up now into Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. And again, some of these could be severe. This is early morning Wednesday. And then when you get later in the day Wednesday, with the afternoon heating, adds more instability. And so here's where our biggest threat, Columbus, Ohio, maybe getting close to Cleveland, moving through central Kentucky, Bowling Green, pretty right about in here, and then through Tennessee, lighter storms as you get into Mississippi and Louisiana. And that front barrels right on through, and you see the brief snow behind it. So this is noon Wednesday as these storms move through West Virginia, into Kentucky, into Tennessee, and then a brief changeover to snow behind it. Those storms, not so much of a severe threat, but still a line of storms moving through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. This would be Wednesday late afternoon and evening. And you see behind it the cold air dropping in behind for one brief cold day here in the Midwest. Meanwhile, on Thursday, Wednesday into Thursday, we're seeing another system, another cold system, dropping into the Pacific Northwest. And I did check the Portland forecast and the Seattle forecast for Thursday into Friday. They're calling for rain mixed with snow. So snow levels not as low on this second storm for Portland, according to their forecast. We'll see if that gets updated, as the first storm. First storm snow level down to about 400 feet. This storm, they're saying 700 to 1,000 feet, not quite as low. But we are still looking for low elevation snows, heavy snow for the Cascades, heavy rain and snow in Oregon and Washington, sinking into California as we get into the evening Thursday and into the morning Friday. And you see some very heavy snow again for the Sierra Nevada. The snowpack here is just insane again, which is mostly good news. Meanwhile, we've seen some showers break out in the southeast with some embedded thunderstorms. Not expecting severe weather here yet, and a little bit of some icing going on for parts of the mountains of North Carolina into Virginia, and a little bit of snow around that as well. And then California gets more into the action from this storm as we get into next weekend. Very heavy snow for the Sierra Nevada. Looks like some decent rains for the central California coast, moving right down the coast to Southern California again. Heavy snow for Salt Lake City. But again, this is next weekend, so we're talking 7-8 days away while this next storm moves into the west. And you can see it looks like some very heavy snow as the system gets its act together. Colorado, Utah, northern Arizona into New Mexico, also Wyoming, and very windy with this system as well. This is a week from today, noon o'clock Sunday, Central Time. And then that storm will kind of ride to the north. It's bringing a swath of snow. Now, this is a week away, so this will definitely change as we get closer. So keep an eye out for maybe another chance of some light snow, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, into Minnesota. Rain with some thunderstorms all the way down to the Red River. It looks like if this comes exactly true, we might get a little bit of light snow here in western Iowa, but most of the activity seems off to the north, and this is heavy snow right here for Minnesota, and they have not seen a lot of that. So this is, again, 8, 9, 10 days away. So take that with a grain of salt. But we do have, speaking of 8, 9, 10 days away, the 8 to 14 day outlook. And these are your temperature trends as we get into March. And it looks cold, colder than average West Coast, and warmer than average eastern half to 2/3. This goes all the way to March 9. So March 3rd to March 9th. And for precipitation, everyone a chance to get, wet or some snow. But the biggest chances, we're looking at southern Arizona, we're looking at parts of the southeast, we're looking at South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska, they can use it, and then also into Michigan. So those are the trends as we get into the longer range forecast. So a lot going on. That cold front's going to be fun moving through the Midwest. that temperature drop is going to be pretty dramatic. Highs in the 70s and then lows in the 20s and even teens. And we're talking Wednesday morning, they're saying wind chills might be below zero here, and with maybe a little bit of fresh snow, not much. And then the severe threat ahead of that front. And then as fast as we cool off, we're going to warm right back up. Kind of spring-like. Well, we'll see as we continue in time, and I'll keep you updated, of course, right here on the Weather Mic. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you soon.